Ladies and gentlemen,
Authorised
next
by
up is our
Matthew
first
Sheehan,
panel of CPAC 2023, welcoming the former US Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, former Australian Assistant Attorney General and absolute icon Amanda Stoker, and American Conservative Union Chairman Matt Schlapp.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your weekend with us at CPAC.
I don't think Joe Biden could have walked down those stairs.
Yeah. The presidential qualification, can you get on the stage?
There's a tradition that when you're in a foreign country, Matt, you're not supposed to mock our own president, but let's just throw that to the side and let's get started correctly.
I wasn't mocking him. I was just pointing a fact.
So we've got Matt Schlapp, the star of CPAC, and we've got Matthew Whitaker, former Attorney General from the US. I feel very honoured to be surrounded by you both. But the question, I think, on everybody's minds, whether they're direct enough to say it is maybe another thing, is what on earth is going on? The leader of the free world has a president who probably couldn't manage those stairs without making us a great video we can turn into memes. And the vice president delivers us beautiful word salads day to day. And on the other side, we have a former president who seems to have the court system weaponized against him. What are you guys doing? How's it going to work out? And what do we need to know to protect our country from a similar fate?
What are we doing? We're saying a lot of prayers.
Wise, always wise.
CPAC in America, of which Matt's on the board with me. The reason for CPAC has never been so obvious to us, which is obviously political parties are incredibly important, and you have this whole conversation here that Tony Abbott had about do you join a party, do you join a major party, do you join a minor party. In America, we don't really have those choices. You kind of have two parties, so you pick. One has now become the full-on commie party, so we're not that. So we're in this other party, but we're constantly disappointed with our party because we want them to be more aggressive and do more. And I think that's a common theme with a lot of folks who I've talked to in this audience. And so the role of CPAC is to reach out to people who don't necessarily fall neatly within this party structure, but they love America and they really want to make a difference. And I would just say the thing that's happening in America is that, it was one thing when we had a left-leaning party that was liberal and a right-leaning party that was a little less government, still too much government, but a little less government. But they believed in things, Matt. We believed in having a strong military. We believed that, going into World War II was a just cause. We believed that there were institutions in society we could protect together. Well, now that you're dealing with a communist party in America, there's really no compromise with a communist party that's trying to destroy your country, destroy everything about it, your foundational document, which they don't believe in any part of it. So we are really in the crisis that it appears that we're in.
Yeah, and that really sets up my speech for tomorrow. So everybody that wants to hear more on that topic, please be here.
Wait a minute, they have to listen to you twice? I thought this was one and done.
No, they have me for the whole weekend, so they figure they're going to use me. What is wrong with the U.S.? There's so much that's wrong, and we can list all of the terrible things and what's happening in the U.S. But at a federal level, it is bad. When Joe Biden won the presidency, he created really a jump team, and I heard the grumbling over here. I know, I get it.
I'm with you.
I get it, but I played college football, which is not the football you're thinking, but the football where you put helmets and pads and run headlong into people my size.
Australians don't need that.
Yeah.
It's the
We're tough
football
enough to
where
do it
you're
without
slower.
the padding.
The slower
but
football.
at the end of the day, somebody gets a trophy, and somebody is in the White House, and so we can talk about the fact that the Democrats cheated the election, but at the end of the day, again, somebody went home with the trophy. So that being said, so the federal government, Joe Biden did a really good job in the transition as they took control and they have tried to lurch that massive organization as far left as they can, with all the woke policies in the Department of Defense that, runs the military, in weaponizing the Department of Justice by putting Merrick Garland and other ideologues in those roles. So there's so many things they did. But I was going to do this at the end, and I will, but what's good about the United States of America is we still do have federalism. And there are states like my home state of Iowa, which picks presidents. My home state of Iowa, we have a supermajority in the legislature, in both the House and the Senate. My good friend Jack Whitver is the Senate Majority Leader in Iowa. Kim Reynolds, another good friend of mine, is the governor. And we're implementing all of these policies that conservatives stand for. And they're working. The people are flourishing. And so the laboratories of innovation, the experiments that our founding fathers created, is still working. The problem is the overlord of the federal government is a completely dysfunctional organization. And so we have to fight within that system, and obviously California is on the counter of that. California has gone fully woke and implemented those woke policies, and their people, quite frankly, are not flourishing. They're being crushed under 60%, tax rate.
Well, if I could just jump in, the thing is, how many of you have been to America in the last 12 months? I've talked to a lot of you about the cities you've gone to. I hear these cities: San Francisco, LA, okay, good, New York City. I would just invite
you. Des Moines.
Yeah, exactly.
No? Okay.
He's a farm state kid, and I'm a farm state kid. Most of America is red America, is conservative, people of faith, decent, kind. They say things like hello and thank you. But people who come to America go to New York City, and they go to Boston, and they go to Philadelphia, and they go to these places. And they were once great cities, but they are big, they are broken, they are bankrupt, they are drug-filled, they are crime-ridden,
and they're dependent on federal largesse
totally, yeah.
to fund them.
That's totally right.
So we have shades of that in Australia, maybe not to the same endpoint as you're seeing in the US, but we have a system of competitive federalism. We have the left of politics, and even some of the coalition right side, who are very sympathetic to the idea of centralising power and opportunities and resources in the federal government. And yet, the strength, it seems, of the American model and the Australian model is in the ability to try things differently from state to state, to solve problems and implement new ideas in solution to problems using that federal structure. There's plenty of examples of the bad things federalism has allowed people to see, like when you look at San Francisco and compare it to Florida. But there's some really cool stuff going on using the benefits of federalism in the US around school reforms and around getting some of those foundational conservative ideas on the ground. Tell us about that.
And let me talk about that, because the Iowa legislature, and I know I sound like a complete homer talking about Iowa, and some of you are like, I don't even know where Iowa is, but it sounds great. Maybe Idaho, maybe Idaho, maybe Ohio, I get it. However, we just passed a school choice bill that essentially gives the parents the ability to take their tax dollars that they spend on schools and be portable and get a better education for their kids. And so that's an experiment.
That stuff's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's going to work because kids in failing schools can now move to a better school, a private school, a charter school, wherever they think. And again, it is such, and homeschoolers actually that get the benefit of this as well. And there's some really interesting things in the homeschool movement that they do as well. But other states are passing that, and then they get to test these things out. Obviously, the federal overlords don't like that, and they're going to come in and try to probably interfere with that at the Department of Education. But that being said, it's also happening in business environment. You look at like Tesla moving from California to Texas. You look at what Texas is doing just as an economic engine, and how they are providing really just an amazing environment for startups and for companies to be there. And that's what works. But at the same time, the oppression of the federal government is a real thing in the United States of America. And also, I would have to say, we have this interesting issue, and it's a farm state issue, but it's going to be bigger than that, and that's the Commerce Clause that allows, sort of states to pass some of their own regulatory regimes. And we're seeing that in farming, especially in chickens and pigs, which, I know sounds very kind of like, who cares about chickens and pigs? Well, I'm sure you ate one or the other today At least in the United States, we did.
It's pretty important to get that
right.
right.
And I remember in a breakfast, the chicken participates, but the pig is fully committed. So it's.
But that's a good segue to.
This is not a room of vegetarians. So you're probably dead on right. Can I take the counter position on this real quickly?
Yes, please.
I'm really not a glasses half empty guy, but things are very, very, very seriously wrong in our country. The left has decided that they won power in the most interesting of elections. And we've never had a presidential election like it, and I don't think we ever will again. Chinese Corona, as I call it, had a very special and evil effect on things, including people's minds. They kind of went gaga on us. But the point is that the left has taken this little bit of almost like a jump ball, and really pushed their advantage aggressively. And so the real question is, they've become so aggressive on every major issue. Anti-family, anti-parents, no limits on abortion through 9 months, no supporting of people's First Amendment rights, which in America are enshrined in our Constitution or our Bill of Rights. The first the first right in our Constitution is your freedom of religion. This idea that you can speak your mind politically. They're trying to stop all that at once. So I would say that I love this idea that the way the founders set it up and the way it was supposed to work was ingenious, but they really have taken the worst of every which way this was set up to try to have the government do everything. And we have the same problem in America you have here. Qantas Airlines, by the way, screw you guys. But seriously, but you gotta get from here to there. So in America, I would say the same thing about American Airlines and all these places. They're terrible. They're funding all the wrong things. We have the same problem in the corporate boardrooms as you guys have in this country. We have the same problems with our media, although you have some wonderful media, I have to say, right?
Keep it coming, yeah.
So anyway, I would just say it's awfully serious, and I don't think Matt would disagree with me, but I think so much of this is going to come down to what happens in our presidential election in 2024.
But at the same time, the ordinary Americans' backlash against wokeism is real. Bud Light, which was the #1 selling beer,
not anymore,
has seen the bottom fall out. I was at an Eric Church concert the other day, last weekend at the Iowa State Fair, and somebody said, "Let me get you a beer." I said, "Yes." They said, "What do you want?" I said, "Anything but Bud Light." I mean, that's where really, and they've seen 30% of their market share go away. Target just reported earnings down 5%. That should be a note to Walmart. Don't go woke.
Absolutely.
Because, real America will punish you. And I think that's going to continue to happen as a backlash. Because at the end of the day, you can believe what you want to believe individually. That's one of the great things about our Bill of Rights, freedom to sort of a freedom of your mind to some extent. And the government can't force you to think what you don't agree with. But remember, you also have a freedom to choose where you want to shop and what you want to ingest and the like. And there is a burgeoning counterculture. And I said this when I was in Hungary at CPAC Hungary, but the conservative,
we call it the resistance.
Conservative,
there's a resistance coming.
The conservative movement is the counterculture now. To be in a suit and to speak in complete sentences is a novel idea.
Yeah. Who'd have thought we would be the rebels? I'm pretty sure that's not in my high school yearbook. The left always want to centralise power. And I think part of the reason is because they understand you never waste a mandate. You never waste an opportunity. And in the US, we've seen the Biden administration push for some really radical ideas in the governmental sense, and also giving the ability for the corporate sector to go woke like nothing else. We see the same thing in Australia. The left of politics always wants that federal control into as many policy areas as possible because you can change more quickly if you are doing it in a centralised way. How do we help Australians, maybe Americans, to understand that the decentralisation of power, the ability to make more choices in your everyday lives, the ability for decisions to be made close to where they have their impact, isn't just good for the economy, isn't just good for the ability of you to raise your family the way you want, but it is at the core of liberty.
I would just say we have a president I like to say, who can't read cue cards, and a vice president who has no clue cards, right? So they're not in charge.
But for those who've been watching, I love school buses!
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what about this when the, hey, man, when he does that weird, creepy grandpa impersonation. But
Not when he's doing the sniffing, but the
sniffing. That's right. The sniffing is alarming.
Very.
He really likes to sniff hair, Matt. You're in the clear. Yeah. The point is they're not in charge, right? So these are kind of figureheads to this very hard left movement. And I would say, again, I hate saying this. I love my country. We have the flag out in front of our house, and it's like I got 5 girls, and it's a big deal, you know. We learn our songs, we learn our history because they're trying to destroy it. We got to learn it. We got to teach it. We got to raise warrior children who will stand up against this woke craziness.
Yeah.
Gender, confusion, critical race theory, all these questions. So what's happening in America is they'll go big or they'll go small. They'll go federal or they'll go local. So like Donald Trump's being persecuted by every judicial anything in the country. They'll go federal when they need to go federal, but they'll go right down to like some 2-bit prosecutor in the Bronx or Georgia, in Atlanta or something else.
Manhattan.
So they, well, I like to say the Bronx, but the point is this, which is what they're doing is they use whatever form of government plays to their advantage in that scenario, and then they turn around and explain why the opposite is the right thing to do, and there's a reason for this. And I know this seems so simple, but when you don't believe in truth, the opposite of that is you lie constantly. And they lie constantly. And by the way, when you don't believe there's an author of truth, there's chaos. And when you have people like Oprah Winfrey saying, my truth, there's no my truth, there's no your truth.
There's just
right?
truth.
Gravity is truth, and we all got to deal with it.
Look, I think that's at the core of so many of the cultural debates of our time too. When we think about something that's as hot button as the gender fluidity issue, it's affronting for many women in particular because it means they've got blokes with all of their equipment.
Stuff.
In ladies' spaces where privacy can be important and can make people feel uncomfortable if it's not there. But there's a deeper offensiveness to it, and that it's asking sensible people to say that 2 + 2 = 6. And it's asking people to say that white is black and purple is green, and
they're doing it with the force of law.
That's right.
With criminalizing it and making it somehow that if you misgender somebody, then you've committed a horrific act. And this is the thing is I think we in the United States, our founding fathers were very concerned about the tyranny of the majority. And because they knew that if you're going to create a constitutional republic and have majority rule, that the minority rights needed to be protected. We never contemplated this idea of a tyranny of the minority, where a small vocal group could influence politics, which remember, it comes from the root of that is poly, which is many, and ticks, which is blood-sucking critters.
That's a fabulous one. But
I don't know. I'm sitting by 2 lawyers. I can go a lot of places right now. I'll just let it go.
He's a generous guy. But the thing about this, though, is that if you can force people to accept that which is false is true, there's really nothing you can't get away with.
No.
So what's the end game here?
Okay, so we talked backstage. We shouldn't do that because we
had too much fun.
Yeah, we did have fun, and I also feel great optimism about what's going on because of this resistance, the pushback. I can see it here. I saw it when I came to CPAC last year. You guys were dealing with lockdowns and COVID craziness and all that, and I had so many really meaningful conversations with so many of you. And I would say this, I'll end how I started, which is this is real CPAC moment. And for the other good conservative groups that are here, it's your moment. This is in America, we call it like our pitchfork moment, when you've had it and you're not going to take it anymore. You're not going to let them teach your grandkids this stuff. You're not going to. In America, we're the only country that teaches their kids in the curriculum to hate their country and to teach them that it's a racist country that cannot get out of the racism. Structurally racist means you can't repair it. It's unrepairable, so that means the country should get put on the garbage heap, and then the Marxists will come in, the Maoists, whatever you want to call them, and we trust them to kind of build a new America, right? This is what's happening. So this is really our moment. And I agree with what Matt's saying, which is the American people, you look at poll after poll after poll, they're tolerant, they're decent, they're faith-filled, they want what's good for their family and for their country, and they hate reading about any kind of bad thing that's happening overseas. When they see people are hurting, they want to help them. And so there's so many good things that are going on in our country that I am tremendously hopeful that we're going to turn this whole thing around in about a little over a year.
Yeah, and I would just add to that as we conclude. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill said it best. He said, the Americans will get to the right answer after they've tried all the wrong ones. But in all seriousness...
At least they keep trying.
Yeah, they keep trying, and we will. We'll get it right. But remember, the greatness of the United States of America has never been, for 247 years, our government. In fact, we've had some pretty bad governments and some pretty bad presidents and a lot of bad senators and representatives. The greatness of America...
And some bad sons of presidents.
Yes,
but we could...
especially bad sons of presidents. But for those 247 years, the greatness of America has always been its people. And I believe in the American people, and I know we will right this ship, and we will continue to lead from the front, and we will continue to be a great ally and a great friend of Australia.
Yeah.
And he's good, isn't he? And that frontier culture that built America, and that is the great hope for America, is reflected in Australia. We have a similar kind of culture in the sense that we all came from either many suffering countries, we came from convicts, we came from Indigenous Australians, but all of us have had a pretty rough start, and we all know in this country, if you go hard and you try hard, you will get somewhere. The US is the same. And so the challenge for all of us is to be part of Schlappy's revolution.
That's right.
On the ground here. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Enjoy CPAC. We'll chat with you some more over the course of the weekend.
Our mates in the US know how to tell it straight, don't they, folks? Ladies and gentlemen, how good to have such fantastic expertise here at CPAC Australia. Give Matt, and Amanda a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.